The CETO call was completely enhanced, and these people just want to believe what they want to hear. And that's exactly what they're doing. So it's just crazy to me that people have tried to twist this and twist the audio. When we came out with the first interview, it debunked half these lies, and now you don't hear about any of it. You don't hear about the pool party because it was on June 27th. You don't hear about anything else that was mentioned. Thousands of lies. And now, oh, the audio comes back, and all of a sudden we can hear Nolan yelling in the background, screaming, we're screaming about how he's dead. That's just a complete lie. And it's another lie to push this narrative that people don't want to turn down. It's insane to me.
Them boys are talking again, and what they said was that they don't like how people turn this into a race issue, and that they made it into a narrative. They talking about us, about how it was about race, and that this was the most non-racist thing, the most anti-racist thing, meaning that them having a black friend in their group, a friend that they claim to have not treated any different than any of the other people in their groups, as well as Tristan, the only other black kid in their friend group, is the most anti-racist thing. I want them to understand that being friends with a black person does not make you non-racist. I need them and other people like them to understand that talking about the factor of race, the aspect of race, whether or not race was a determining factor in a situation where somebody is now dead in a group of people who don't look like them, is not racism. It's not anti-white. It is based on a repetitive history of behavior and pattern recognition. It is coming from a survivor mentality of having to survive narcissistic abuse that is historically documented, that happens when a certain group of people take a certain individual that has melanated skin by themselves, and that person does not come back alive, and the rest of them do. I need them to understand and be really real, because we know better. We know that when you're that one black friend in the group, you get made fun of, you get the jokes, and they laugh it off. The racism is casual. The racism is in jokes. It's dressed up as poking fun. But we love you, bro. We're just kidding, bro. Oh, you're my homie. You're my bro. I need y'all to understand something. Just because they were friends does not make them any less anti-black or racist. And I know they don't understand that, because I know that they support what they support, they believe what they believe, and they think that it's black folk that are pushing racism at the same time saying we want racism to end. No, Buki. Us talking about race is not pushing racism. Us bringing racial determining factors to the forefront of a conversation and how race has operated within the systems of this city, of this town, of this state, of this nation is not racism. Y'all got it real twisted. So here's what I need people to see what's going on. There is a desperate want for them, because now they're acting like, oh, I'm so sorry, I wish Nolan was here, I wish Nolan was here, but we still don't have any answers as to what happened. That was your brother, your friend, your bestie, and you don't know what happened because you left him with a girl who says that no, you didn't leave him with him. The math's not mathing. We're still not getting answers, and of course we're not going to, because this is the podcast they chose to go and have an interview with, because they knew he would not ask them these hard questions. Why don't they go and sit with Dr. Umar? Why don't they go and sit with somebody who's going to ask the question, why is this not adding up with what this witness said? Why is this time frame not adding up with this? Why did we hear what we heard in the background of that phone call? Why did y'all cancel CETO? Why did y'all cancel the Coast Guard? Why did you have his phone? Why did his father have to get the police to come and help him retrieve Nolan's keys to his car that was in y'all's parking lot? Like, there are so many questions, and no one's asking them the right questions because they're not going to the people and speaking to the people who they know will ask them these questions. Now, I don't try to film a video multiple times talking about the father, son, daughter, sister, brother, cousin, nephew, married into the family connections that are going on in this town. And every time I make these videos, it gets taken down. So I'm going to just leave it where it's at. You can find it. It's public information if you want to. But here's what we need to understand. This is Mississippi doing what Mississippi does best. This is what America was built to do. This is a system working exactly out how it was designed to work. And I don't care what these boys say. They come from the mentality that if I am cool and call myself friends with a black person, I can't be racist. I can't be racist, but then they support racist ideology. Then they support white supremacist propaganda. Then they vote for someone who has a history of racism. Then they vote for policies that do damage and harm to black and brown communities. That is racist. That is anti-black. And I guarantee you they were making anti-black jokes to Nolan the entirety of this friendship. You cannot convince me that they weren't. I've been there. I know what it's like to be surrounded by a group of white folk and you be the butt of the joke because they think they have a past now that they're your friend. And I got out of that a long time ago. We've all been there. We all know what it's like when they're laughing in our faces, when the racism is casual, when it's sly, when it's almost polite. We know, we've been there. So you can try to fool us all you want to. You can try to gaslight us into not recognizing the pattern that y'all have taught us to see with y'all's own behavior. So yes, when we see a group of white boys out with one black boy, not one black boy ended up dead and not coming back home, there is a problem, and we are going to determine if race had something to do with it, because it usually does when it comes to situations like this in this racialized society, in this anti-black society, in this white supremacist society. It is what it is. If y'all don't like it, y'all shouldn't have made it like that. If y'all don't like it, y'all should disenfranchise it. Y'all should decolonize your minds. Y'all should deconstruct the anti-blackness and white supremacy and the patriarchy, but y'all don't want to do that because y'all value your comfort more. Y'all just don't want to look like the bad guy. It's not that you don't want to be the bad guy. You don't want to look like you're the bad guy. It's white fragility. It's white narcissism. It is what it is. I wish they keep on talking. Keep on talking. Tell us more, because I'm real interested. Tell us more. Do more interviews. Keep the mouths running. Because we hear what you're saying and what you're not saying.
What do you mean it's a quote from a mob movie?
Because if you don't do that, once you're in court, now you just can't leave. Now you just can't leave.
Maybe if you're trying to convince the general public that these boys are innocent, don't quote a mob movie in which they then beat up a bunch of bikers at a bar. And it seems quite obvious to me that this lawyer, instead of, presenting evidence that would help exonerate them in the public eye, like showing the actual security cam footage of when they came home or the text messages with Katie. No. Instead, we're going to keep it focused on race, which you can see by this clip.
People are pushing the narrative of, oh, this is a race thing. Well, obviously it's not. I mean, this is like a brother to us. I mean, Nolan's no different than anyone else in our group.
I think it's so criminal that they took something so anti-racist and flipped it into something super racist. Like they took, this is the definition of anti-racism. I mean, that we did not look at Nolan any different than I looked at him, or even you.
Okay, first off, that even you was wild. It's quite clear from that sentence that Jax has never had an actual conversation about racism in his entire life. I was friends with a black person. That's the most anti-racist anybody's ever been. This situation was the most unracist thing that's ever existed. It's the media. They're the ones making this racist. No, you don't understand what that means. It means your story doesn't hold water, and when people called you out on it and called out the investigation on not even investigating, that is systematic racism. It's very, very clear to me that the lawyer is the one telling them to keep the focus on race. Because you can see the lawyer and the gears in his head turning and nodding and agreeing along with all of the racial stuff. And you can see him kind of being like, yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So it's very clear that that was one of the bullet points that the lawyer told them to hit home over. And another one was the Coast Guard. Why would I call the Coast Guard if I knew he was dead? I called the Coast Guard right away. First off, you didn't. You waited till 11 o'clock. Second, it's not like the Coast Guard searched for him that night. Warren clung to that like it was a safety raft.
I think from the beginning, I'm glad that I called the Coast Guard. It would have been completely different. I'm glad I called the Coast Guard.
It's like, I'm sorry, Warren, but it's actually way more suspicious that you called the Coast Guard. Because first, you didn't want to call the Coast Guard when you guys were sinking. And then for some reason, you assumed that Nolan was still out on the island at 11 o'clock at night. Why wouldn't you assume that he came back with the person he was supposed to come back with and something happened to him in transit? Because no reasonable person would think that he was still out on the island, in my opinion. Because in your own words, Warren, you said you didn't talk to Katie till the next day. And then speaking of the island, the lawyer tries to say that by them going to the island and looking around, that it absolutely exonerates them and that the narrative couldn't be this, and ends it with a wild statement, mind you.
People who have been sucking up way more oxygen than they're entitled to have not been to the island. I'm willing to bet that a lot of the hustlers and profiteers and liars have not been to that island. And you have to go to that island. And being at the island today was revelatory. It was really illuminating. It's a very dynamic marine environment, first of all. But when you go to the island, you see instantly that what some people want to be true, what they wish to be true, they're trying to wish it to be true. They're trying to make it true through their lies. It's actually not possible. It is a very, very long and narrow barrier island. It's basically very low sand dunes. And the particular part of the island that we're dealing with, there are no trees. It's hardly any foliage, hardly any tree cover, hardly any plants, and it's wide open. And on July 4th, there were thousands of people there. There is no possible way that anybody could have committed a murder in broad daylight.
Murder? Who's saying anything about a murder? Most of us are under the assumption that an accident happened and they covered it up. All of this stuff that they keep trying to point to as evidence that they didn't do anything to him are not actually evidence. You know what is evidence? The security cam footage. Explain to us why the grandfather was the one who canceled the CETO. How about that? And what I see is just a complete lack of responsibility with these boys. Because listen to this phrasing.
I wish we would have never, like, I think about this every day. Like, I wish we would have never went out on the 4th of July because I know this wouldn't have happened.
You see, instead of saying, I should have made sure my friend got home safely, they said, I wish we had never gone out. And I have to admit, my little antennas buzzed a little when it sounded like he was going to say, I knew this was going to happen, right? That seems like what he was going to say. It wasn't, maybe we shouldn't have been underage drinking. They literally say, we did everything right.
I mean, there's not much I would change from my point of view and my friend's point of view. I think we did everything right, and I know we did nothing wrong.
Those are not the words of somebody who lost their brother, their best friend, a month ago. And I lost one of my closest friends in a non-suspicious way. I blamed myself, even though I hadn't even physically seen her in a couple years. And for those of you guys saying that Jax is the one that people should press, I fully disagree. He is the one that I think is the scariest out of these interviews. Watch the way he looks at Warren during this moment.
We live in a very tight-knit community, and for people to, push back and say these things when they know what Ocean Springs is like, it's really hard. And I mean, I haven't had many personal encounters, but I know being around the
Oh, he felt like he was saying something to Warren. Because let's not forget, it was his grandparents' house that they all got together at. It was his grandparents' house that they went back to and thus should have security cam footage from. And out of all of them, Jax is the one that is holding his body in a different way, who is more controlled, more level-headed. If these kids were truly looking to exonerate themselves, they would actually start addressing some of these questions, like, who was the fourth boat? Why were all of you huddled up out there together? Who drove the fucking Palm Beach?
You guys are all back. Go back to the projects. Go back to the projects. Go back to the projects. Let's go.
Tatum's first move after watching that video was to defend the people in the crowd. He said that there's no way those people can be racist because they paid tickets for a football game when they know that most of the players are predominantly black. You can yell racist things at these players. You can yell homophobic slurs at these players, but because you bought a ticket, there's no way you're actually racist or homophobic. And this is one example. The reason why Tatum went out of his way to find this kid and have this interview because any chance that Tatum gets to come to the rescue of white people, he is going to do that. You will never, and I mean never, you can search his Instagram, his Twitter, his YouTube as far as you want. You will never see a video of Tatum coming to the defense of a black person who is a victim of overt racism. He won't come to the defense of a black person who he knows that we all agree was profiled and assaulted by a police officer. He will never, I have never, and I've spent a lot of time on his page, a lot of these black MAGA type creators, and I have never seen him defend black people, especially as quick as he runs to defend this white family. That is a red flag. These people are smart people. They're highly educated. They decided to go with Tatum because they know exactly who he is. When they were doing their research and they decided This is the first guy we want to go public with. They decided that because they saw his videos. They decided, here's a black guy who puts a black face on our racism. We know he is going to be past fair with us. We know he's on our side. We know no matter what we say, he's going to defend us. And that is why they went with Tatum. That's the red flag to me. Why would you ever, with all of these news organizations out there, with all of these black people that they could have spoken to first, there are centrists out there. There are even Republican black people or Hispanic journalists that they could have spoken to first. They chose a far-right, racist podcaster who hates himself and his own people and black people, and they did that on purpose. That to me speaks volumes. Like,
did you notice the uncomfortable body language of Nolan Wells' friends during the interview? In the Officer Tatum show, the 4 key friends said they deeply regretted going to the island that day and insisted that none of them would ever want to hurt their friend. However, many viewers noticed unusual body language during the interview. First, all 4 showed obvious signs of tension. They often kept their hands tightly clasped or resting on their legs, with very limited movement. Although they were being interviewed, their body language looked more like they were sitting in an interrogation room. Second, they showed similar signs of avoiding eye contact when discussing sensitive topics. When asked about the beach conflict, the emergency call, and Nolan's phone, they frequently looked down instead of making direct eye contact. Their lower voices, frequent blinking, and lip movements also showed signs of avoidance. Additionally, Warren previously showed noticeable language differences when telling the story. He often called the other white teens my brothers or my friends, but when talking about Nolan, he would say Nolan and my friends instead of including Nolan as part of us. Some people believe this wording suggests he was trying to distance himself from the incident. These details have raised more questions, but others argue that they may simply be nervous because of online harassment and the trauma of recalling a tragic event, which can also cause defensive body language. Do you think they were truly uninvolved?
Nolan Wells' friends did this new interview with Officer Tatum, and the interview itself was a disaster, in my opinion. The purpose of this new interview from Officer Tatum was for Nolan Wells' friends to garner sympathy from the public. And it actually did the opposite, and you will see why.
I've been called out in public, and I haven't been in public that much. I know my friends have had encounters in public. The threats have been insane from, my stepmom and my dad, my mom, just everyone included, like even my brothers and my sisters. And it's just hard. I mean, it's unbelievable where like this has been taken to and the level where this is at.
When you say you've been called out in public, can you give me an example of like, what do you mean? People are threatening you with weapons? People are, not allowing you, denying you service? Because I heard that Tristan, he went to a corner store and they told him his money is not good there. They wouldn't even let him buy Gatorade.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing things like that or something totally different?
Right. I wouldn't say like that. I think I haven't been denied, anything, but like Tristan, it's hard to hear from a good friend of mine that he's getting denied a Gatorade and a Red Bull before work and having to, like, he calls me, he's like, dude, you won't believe what just happened. He got called out at Walmart. Someone called him out at Walmart and was like asking him all these questions and trying to press him about it. And it's crazy to me. Like, we live in a very tight-knit community, and for people to, push back and say these things when they know what Ocean Springs is like, it's really hard. And I mean, I haven't had many personal encounters, but I know being around the guys and stuff like that, they have, so.
Tristan is the black kid, by the way, who did an interview with Tatum, who went off on the black community, who claimed that the black community has never been good to him. His white side has always been the best to him. He went off on Nolan Wells' mama, went off on Benjamin Crump. Now, by the way, Tristan was somebody nobody knew of. Nobody had a picture of Tristan. Nobody included Tristan in his mess. Tristan inserted himself in this mess by requesting an interview with like NBC or ABC. He's the one that inserted himself in this mess. Tristan did. All right. So the fact that he inserted himself in this mess and now he's claiming victim to me is crazy. But just one more thing to point out, before we address the actual claims that Tristan was being threatened. Tristan is one of the only black friends, right, in this friend group. And somehow Tristan, who's also being threatened, isn't being represented by the powerhouse Donald Trump attorney. Everybody you see there are being represented by Donald Trump's attorney, right? He's the guy who's filing defamation claims against everybody. Tristan isn't sitting there. Tristan is not being represented by the powerhouse attorney, right? Only the white kids are. This may be Tristan wake-up call, right? Trust me, I would know about wake-up calls, all right? Now, the Tristan situation, do I feel like people are looking at Tristan and really thinking that Tristan has something to do with this? I don't think so. Because for all accounts, Tristan left the island early. Tristan was never on the boat back or to. Tristan literally is not even a part of the situation. Tristan inserted himself because he's a clout chaser. He was trying to clout chase. And it looks like he got the attention that he was so desperately seeking and craving. So we'll have to ask the local corner store owner, did you kick Tristan out? Did you kick him out of your store because of you believing that he's involved in Nolan Wells' death, or because of the things he said about Nolan Wells' mama, who's a beloved figure in the community, because of the things he said about the Black community in Ocean Springs, right? I can almost guarantee you it's probably the latter, not the before, right? Because I don't think anybody thinks that Tristan murdered Nolan Wells, right? Because Tristan, again, was not involved. He's a clout chaser, okay? Now, it doesn't just stop at Tristan. They also told this story of when their life was in danger, but the story itself doesn't really add up, and it broke down as they told it.
Or what does that look like when you go out? People threaten you with weapons, or people trying to physically harm you, or people having to be restrained? What kind of engagement is happening when you guys go out?
We went to a restaurant, a couple of buddies of mine, and when we were, I wouldn't say threatening with weapons or anything, but I felt, and I know my friends felt, threat for our lives. I mean, I don't think...
No threats with weapons or anything, but he felt threatened for his life. Tell us more. How did you feel threatened for your life?
There was like a fear factor, but at the same time, like it's awkward in public, like I stated, like when we have to talk about these things. But we went to a restaurant and someone came up to me and was like, "Is this you?" And I was kind of like shaken up about it. Well, at first she asked like my name and like all these questions, and I was like, okay, whatever, she's just coming up to talk. Well, then she came up to me again and showed me our first interview and was like, "Are you sure this isn't you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's me, like obviously." And she kind of just, I looked at my buddy and I was like, "Yeah, we're leaving, like close everything out, like we're going."
Hold on, bruh. The woman came up and said, "Hey, is this you?" Then she came back and said, "Well, you sure it's not you?" And that right there was the threat that amounted to you feared for your life and you had to run out the place because a woman came up to you and asked you if this was you that did a very public interview. What are we talking about here, man? It gets even more ridiculous when they keep talking. So far, the only quote-unquote threat on their life that they received is a woman came up and asked them if this was him that did the interview, multiple interviews with Officer Tatum. And because she asked him, "Is this you?" that right there was a threat that amounted to a threat on his life. But it gets more ridiculous.
And I left, and there was an altercation after I left with some of my buddies that weren't involved in this at all. And they told my friends that they were going to kill them and they wanted to fight and all this like crazy stuff. I mean, I wasn't there, but my friends told me this, that what the people were saying to them was like totally just crazy. Like, I mean, there was people like that were, outside of this telling us like, "Hey, you need to leave before something happens because I know what could go down right now. And like, I know that these people are crazy."
He wasn't there. He never heard anybody say that. He never witnessed it. He wasn't there when it took place, but somehow he's repeating it as if it's facts. But here's the thing. The friend that starts speaking directly after him would say he never heard that part of the story before. He never heard that people's lives was threatened before. So, and they both was quote unquote there. They both quote unquote left. So if your friends that were still inside came outside and told y'all, "Hey, they just threatened our life," why is your other friend, right, that's sitting next to you, I think his name is Jax, why is he telling, like Tatum and everybody, oh, hey, I never heard that part of the story. Come on, bruh. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. And and if you guys were gonna come on air and come on this platform and present these stories or present these people as boogeymen and y'all as like innocent victims, then y'all should have gotten y'all story straight before you guys came on this platform, right? Because so far what we're hearing is no threats was made on your life, but you still ran out the building because she asked you if this was you on TikTok. You claiming your friends told you their life was quote unquote in danger, but you never witnessed it, you never saw it, you never heard it, and your other friend is saying he never heard anything like that.
So I mean, we all felt we were kind of shaken up about that. It was weird because it was our first encounter as a group, and I think it's also like just crazy that people will like look at you in the eye and tell you they'll kill you because they believe you killed your best friend and you have nothing to do with it.
Nolan Wells' best friends is Warren. According to you, Warren, Tristan said he's the best friend. Javon said he's the best friend. And let's just say those other guys that are there are saying that they're the best friend. None of y'all have witnessed, have experienced somebody looking you in your eyes and telling you they're going to murder you. You guys have said that. So which one of the quote unquote best friends did that happen to? So so the guys that were also like in the store or in the restaurant, right? Those guys were also Nolan Wells' best friends. How many best friends do Nolan Wells have, bruh? The entire town is Nolan Wells' best friend.
And Morgan and Jax, were you guys there?
Yes, we were there.
I was there.
I didn't hear the part where they said they were going to kill him and stuff, but I did hear whenever she came up to him originally, she was like, hey, you have like TikTok or anything like that? Your face looks really familiar. And he was like,
bro, he told him to his face. I don't know what he's talking about in terms of they said they're going to kill him. I wasn't there. I don't know what he's talking about. But I did, hear the lady come up to him and ask him if this was him on TikTok. Now do you see why people are so suspicious of these dudes? Now you see why people consider these dudes so sketchy? Like, now do you see why? Now, for a story where apparently they were all present, there's 5 different variations of this story. 5 different ones. Jax, who was apparently with Warren at the quote-unquote altercation, his description, his reiteration of what took place is completely different from Warren.
no, I don't have TikTok, anything like that. And she was like, oh, okay. And then walked off and then came back with, like you said, the first interview on her phone and showing him. She's like, so this isn't you. Either you have a doppelganger or this is you. And he was like, well, yeah, that's me. And then we got the check and we bounced and we were waiting outside for everybody else to get out of there. And while we're waiting outside is whenever some of our other buddies that aren't even on social media that we were just there with was getting told that other people are going to kill them and all that kind of stuff.
Don't get that confused with people telling the quote-unquote friends that were still left, we're going to get you. No. Don't get that confused with that. They're about to clarify it up. What actually took place was a bystander or somebody essentially seen the woman come up to him, ask him if this was him. He then got up and jetted out to the store. The bystander noticed what's going on, and the bystander told him, hey, you might want to leave, right? Because, these folks in this town, they're not playing. When they see you, they might get y'all. So a bystander told them these things, and they got spooked out and left.
So how did that make you guys feel did you think they were serious? Did you think it was just people trying to make a name for themselves by confronting you in front of others? Like, what was your take on that, Morgan?
I think it was just like, I was in the general area of where one of our buddies was, where this altercation happened.
The one that's currently speaking, he was still present. He was still there when these two was out the restaurant. He was still there. Here is him explaining what exactly took place and how Warren's quote-unquote idea of what took place is completely wrong and is contradictory to what he's about to say. Warren says they told him, we're going to kill you. We're going to get you. He's about to explain, well, I was there and all I heard was this bystander tell them, hey, y'all might want to leave because these people are not playing, which is completely different from, from the narrative that Tatum is trying to push out there.
And I actually got into a conversation with a fellow next to me that wasn't even involved, and he told me straight up, he was like, if I was y'all right now, I would leave before y'all get hurt. Y'all need to leave right now. I'm just watching out for y'all and making sure y'all are safe. And I mean, I wouldn't say that those people would have physically done something in that moment, but I think they were playing almost like a mental game. Like,
he was actually there, and that's entirely different than the original story, which is these monsters was telling us they was gonna get us, they was gonna take our lives, and we had to run up out of there, and our friends got threatened too. He's saying, man, listen, the lady came, man, she asked for, she asked dude if this was him on TikTok or in his interview. That's public, by the way. He got spooked and left. They were sitting there, like one of the other dudes told them, hey, y'all better get up out of here, man, because, these folks in this town don't play. If that's y'all, they're talking about regarding Nolan, man, y'all better leave. That's entirely different, bro. Right? Just entirely different, man. And to further add, right, to their really huge mistake in doing this interview with Tatum, they took some shots at Nolan Wells' mama. Now, my thing is this. If you guys are already hated, if you guys feel like you guys are already being given an unfair chance, do you think it's wise to lie on Nolan Wells' mom? So they go ahead and take some shots at Nolan Wells' mother and accuse her of doing things that she didn't do.
How do you think this should have played out? Because I always question in my mind that when I go back, I look at what happened, I look at the initial stories with Nolan, and you guys knew him, right? I didn't know him. I know none of you guys. I just had a chance to meet you guys more recently. But how do you think this should have gone? If you could control the environment, Nolan is found deceased. How do you guys think that this should have been put out to the world?
So first off, I wish that none of this would ever happen. I wish Nolan could still be here with us today. And I wish that, like I said, none of this would ever happen. Like, I wish that all this could be erased and Nolan could be here tomorrow. I mean, that's more than anything. But other than that, I feel like his mom blasting us on social media from the get-go, saying that he was out there with Warren and another guy. That's where it first started to take off. And then also the fact that she posted a picture of me and Morgan and another guy and Nolan on the boat together, blasting that out there, pushing this narrative, kind of, I guess. I wish that would have never happened either. And I don't think if those would have never happened, a lot of this stuff wouldn't have been as viral or gone all over the country at this point. I mean, this is a countrywide news story that is just blown out of proportion. And
the post where the mom posted their picture, where they're saying this is an example of the mom pushing a narrative or pushing racism, is a post where the mama is correcting a mistake she made. So at the time, the mama didn't have any pictures of Nolan on the island that day. So she was telling people, somebody told me he had on black swim trunks. Please, if you guys see my son, he has on black swim trunks. She then found out he had on blue swim trunks when she received this picture. So she began to post this picture of Nolan saying, this is what he was wearing on the island that day. If you guys see him, please let me know. Nolan was still missing at the time. He was still missing. This post here says nothing about race. This post does not accuse anybody in this picture of doing anything to Nolan. If you scroll up, the mama goes, this is Nolan. He's been missing. If you guys see him, let me know, right? She goes up and says, me and my husband has been up for 48 hours. We feel like our body is shutting down. If you guys can contact us, please let me know. Again, these pictures. Here's better pics from July 4th. Where she's showing the world, this is what Nolan was wearing. This is what Nolan looked like. This is Nolan Wells. If you find him, please let me know. She didn't know Nolan was dead yet. This was just her saying, yo, my son is missing. If you find him, let me know. Now, the boys are saying, here's better pics from July 4th. He was wearing blue swim trunks, not black swim trunks. The boys is now saying that this post was her pushing the narrative. That post was her pushing racism. That post was the reason why people began to point their fingers at her, and they would have preferred, or rather, her not post their pictures or her post those pictures. So how is she going to find her son? How is she going to notify her son of, how is she going to notify the public of what her son looked like on that day? Yo, I don't understand. Like, I can understand going off on the content creators or going off on the YouTubers. I don't understand, like, going off on Nolan's mama. I don't understand accusing Nolan's parents of doing anything wrong. All the parents are trying to do is find their son. Her posting those pictures was not to accuse you guys of anything. They were saying, yo, this is what Nolan was wearing. This is how he looked like. And those were the only pictures she had of him from the island. What they're doing to this mom is not okay and is not cool, bruh. Is not cool at all, man. Now, Donald Trump's attorney that's representing him, he stepped in afterwards and he made veiled threats. Now, here's the thing, bro. If you guys want to be sympathetic figures, you probably don't start off with making veiled threats like, oh, we're coming and it's gonna hurt. All right, son. Like, all right, bro. All right, man.
And Ed, as an attorney that's representing these boys, I mean, what does that make you feel like? Do you feel like you got a good case here, or what's your perspective in that? Because people are online, and obviously they know who you are. Obviously they know you represented Donald Trump in some pretty high-profile cases, and so now that you've joined, or at least now you work for the young men here. You hear them say things like they've been accosted, they've been, threatened online. Does that make your case a greater case, or how do you work within what's happening to these young men?
Well, unfortunately, I wish there was no case. I wish this hadn't happened. But unfortunately, because these things did happen, there is a case, and now there's multiple cases. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're out there and you lied about these guys, you lied about my guys, you lied about Tyler's guys here, if you lied about Morgan, if you lied about Jax, if you lied about Warren, we're going to get you. And you're going to be hauled into court, you're going to be held accountable, and it's going to be very painful. And what I would say to the people who have done that is, now's your chance. If you want to apologize and retract before you find yourself in court, you should probably do that now. Because if you don't do that, once you're in court, now you just can't leave. You won't be able to get out of it. And we're not going to name names because there's some other folks who are doing that, and we want to be better than that. And I want to emphasize this, right? We're not here to guess. We're not here to speculate. We're only going to deal in facts, right? And here's the most important thing, right? We don't know how Nolan Wells died. No one here is saying we know. But what we do know is Morgan, Jax, and Warren had nothing whatsoever to do with Nolan Wells' death. And that's what's important. And unfortunately, because there are people who want to divide a town and come in from the outside and tell people what to think and pit neighbor against neighbor, it compounds the tragedy. It magnifies the tragedy. And I just want to say this. Here's why it's an even bigger tragedy. Because my friends here, Morgan, Jax, and Warren, these guys are not just the finest that Ocean Springs has to offer, finest that Mississippi has to offer. These are the finest young men that America has to offer.
This interview is having an opposite effect. Instead of making them a sympathetic figure, when people hear them say that about Nolan Wells' mom, they're not sympathetic towards anything these kids got going on. Because these kids understand the mama is being hit with false complaints. The mama, professional review is being bombarded with negative reviews, right, by white supremacists. The mama is getting false complaints. The nursing board is investigating her, or they closed the investigation, but they started an investigation into it, and that stays on her record. So they understand, right, the mama is being bombarded for simply asking what happened to my son. The mama has not brought up race at all. What happened to my son? And the fact that they are adding to the hate and compiling on the hate on their dead best friend's mama, to me, is just insane. We could take a look at the response from this interview, and it would show it didn't have the intended effect that they wanted it to have. So one person stated, so they can go on interviews and give support, but the mother gets bashed for trying to find her son killer. All right, man, in response to them blaming the mama, right? And like one person says, TMZ is invested in persuading people of those boys' innocence. Nolan was like his brother, but when he was missing, no one had any urgency to look for him or give his parents his phone. She had to rely on Life 360 to locate the phone. Side note, why are they talking to former officer, current content creator Tatum? Body language, they're saying is off. You know, and one person says, so is it true Nolan's phone was never turned over to the authorities and that allegedly Nolan's mom has his phone? If so, why is she allowed to keep it since he's part of the case? Again, man, it's always the white AVR, right? It's always the white AVI, right? Bro, like, again, miss, they're calling them murderers, which again, I won't go that far until I get to know exactly what happened, but it didn't have the intended effect. It just didn't. It just didn't have the effect they wanted it to have. All right. It just didn't, man. All right. But if you're still watching this video and you want to watch another good video, then click on this video right here somewhere on my screen, somewhere here, or here, where I break down how Oskino just revealed more dark secrets about Wallow and his family and why Oskino believes that Wallow has been lying to everyone. I'm going to see you guys in this Wallow video and Oskino video. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.
Want to apologize and retract.
Just watch
before
them.
You find yourself in court.
Watch them.
You should probably do that now.
They think it's funny.
Because if you don't do that,
and then they cut the clip because I told them like stop laughing. But
you won't be able to get out of it. And we're not going to.
Why is that so funny? And look, they cut the clip and they try to make it like he's finishing one sentence.
You won't be able to get out of it. And we're not going to name names because
see,
there's some other folks who are
it took
doing
a
that,
break. They're like,
and
dude,
we want to be better than that.
Y'all stop fucking laughing.
On the floor or something, or scrambling around, or everybody in a pot, like in a small space on the boat looking at him or something. I mean, it's just so crazy to think that. Why would we call a space on the boat looking at him or something? I mean, it's just so crazy.
After watching the video clips of ex-Officer Tatum interviewing the young men who were with Nolan Wells on the day he went missing, there was one statement that stuck with me. I think this is one of the most important statements that was made in this interview, and it highlights something that might be happening going on within the minds of these individuals. So I want to share that with you. I want to break it down and help you understand what is happening here.
All right, now these are all American young men, incredible young men. And they did a lot more than just that. I won't go through all of it now, but they did a lot of heroic things after the fact, and they did the best they could.
What is the relevance of referring to these young men as all American boys? What does that have to do with anything? It's as if you're saying that like good, clean-cut, all-American white boys don't do anything wrong, don't commit any crimes, are above reproach and should not be criticized because these are like good kids. But the truth is, even kids that look like that do stuff wrong. The truth is, this is like a racist dog whistle. Why are you guys going after and criticizing and attacking these really good young men? Well, the reason why is because the story and the details don't add up. This young man went missing and ended up dead under very suspicious circumstances. And at the very least, you did do something very odd, which is you left your friend and brother alone on an island by himself, and he did not come home. So referring to them as good American boys who are heroic is just odd. Because it's like you're trying to control the narrative about these young boys and trying to protect them. But do you know who else deserves protection? Do you know who else was a good American young man? Nolan Wells. And he did not make it home. And the family deserves the truth and justice as to why.
Last time I personally laid eyes on Nolan was at like 3 o'clock.
You didn't leave till 4:31.
If the last time you saw Nolan was at 3 o'clock, then how did you know he was beside the boat with Katie McCormick at 4:30?
Bart, I called Bart that morning. I was like, hey man, can you take your boat out? And he was like, yeah, well.
People left the phone on the boat. Was it just his phone when y'all left, or
Right,
did other people have phones on the boat?
Absolutely not. Like there was at least, well, I rode out here on a different boat, like I told you, and I grabbed my phone when I left the Palm Beach to get on the boat with Triton. To get on the boat.
If Katie had text somebody that she heard people yelling
Correct.
for Nolan to get on it. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, because she was.
If you're out there and you lied about these guys, you lied about my guys, you lied about Tyler's guys here, if you lied about Morgan, if you lied about Jax, if you lied about Warren, we're going to get you. And you're going to be hauled into court, you're going to be held accountable, and it's going to be very painful. And what I would say to the people who have done that is, now's your chance. If you want to apologize and retract before you find yourself in court, you should probably do that now. Because if you don't do that, once you're in court, now you just can't leave. You won't be able to get out.
Is that a challenge? Because it sure sounded like a challenge, because I have absolutely no problems saying it again with my whole chest. Nolan Wells' friends, actually, you know what? There's someone I can call real quick.
Who is calling? Oh, it's the homie.
Hey, AB.
What it do, boo?
I have a quick question for you.
What's cracking?
If I want to talk about what I personally think happened to Nolan Wells based off the public evidence, that's my own personal opinion and protected by the First Amendment, right?
Okay, homie, well, it depends, okay? First and foremost, did you say the word allegedly? Or at least make it clear that it's your opinion? Because that's going to protect you. Speaking of protection, the First Amendment is mostly about protecting yourself from the government, right? So since this sounds more like a private person-to-person type of situation, I'm assuming we're talking about defamation here, in which case you can still share your opinions, but just use the word allegedly to be on the safe side, homie.
Oh, well, let me ask you this. What do you think even are the chances that they will actually sue for defamation? Because isn't it a horrible idea on their part to have those boys get deposed when they go through discovery? Because don't they have to prove their innocence to be able to prove defamation? And then by doing so, won't they create a public record of the civil trial that can then be used as evidence in a potential criminal trial down the road?
Okay, somebody been out here watching court TV. I see you, big dog. Lawsuits are expensive, okay? And defamation lawsuits are not easy to win. So in my opinion, it is more likely you'll get hit with a cease and desist from a lawyer or whatever, so you could take the post down before they really finna try you on a defamation lawsuit. And yes, honey, if you have a defamation lawsuit, there's going to be discovery, and part of discovery is likely going to be a deposition. But yes, a deposition is a legal record, so whatever they say on the record, if it ends up going to a criminal trial, it might come out in court.
Wait, so we don't have to worry about Officer Tatum and their lawyer literally threatening to sue anyone and everyone who is vocalizing that they do not believe Nolan Wells' friends' accounts and think that they may be guilty?
Friend, they can threaten all they want to, okay? The likelihood of these teenage boys actually taking you to court for reporting your opinion is very slim, homie, okay?
Oh, so basically this is just another instance where white people are using the system that they created in their favor and weaponizing it against black people to intimidate them?
I'ma just say, allegedly.
Dope. Because I personally think, in my own personal opinion, that Nolan Wells' friends allegedly are not innocent in what happened to Nolan Wells. And by the way, threatening lawsuits as a form of intimidation while filing frivolous lawsuits is actually considered highly unethical and can get a lawyer disbarred.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! Damn it, Bart. Oh my God! All right.